Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning in Indonesia. My name is Aziz. I'm a first-year student in PhD program in Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis. I'm really happy to be here. Particularly now we have Dr. Adlin. Dr. Adlin is a very renowned scholar in Indonesia. I first met Dr. Adlin when we worked together in the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Indonesia, and also we are from the same university networks, which is State Islamic University in Indonesia. And also here Dr. Adlin will deliver a talk on being Muslim in Indonesia, the conception of Islam and everyday experience of Muslims in Bima, Eastern Indonesia. And I think the topic of this talk has already been published by Leiden University Press as a book. So I think it's really exciting work. And yeah, I think that's a little introduction from me. And yeah, Dr. Adlin is a research professor. So in Indonesia, we have two kinds of professors. The first is research professors, and the second one is professor in university. I think without further ado, I would like to hand over and let Dr. Adlin to lead the discussion. The time is yours, Dr. Adlin.
The very good morning, everyone, and good night at the Jakarta time. So welcome to my presentation in this Friday forum. So I'm sending you warmest regards from Jakarta at midnight time. So let me thank you all for attending virtually my presentation today. I would like, first of all, to express my gratitude to Professor Jan Beult, Director of Center for Southeast Asian Studies, University Wisconsin-Madison, for inviting me today to host this forum. Also, my thanks also for Ms. Mary McCoy, for her introduction at the beginning, and Ms. Visay for having been communicating with me through email in the last couple of weeks. It's an honor to have the opportunity to address just such distinguished audience. So the title of my talk today is Being Muslim in Indonesia, the conception of Islam and everyday experience of Muslims in Bima, Eastern Indonesia. So as Aziz also said at the beginning, that I rely most of the materials of my talk today on my book, recently published by Leiden University Press, entitled Being Muslim in Indonesia, Religiosity, Politics and Cultural Diversity in Bima. So it was published last June, so it's almost 1 year, and I hope you can all read this book. But let me a bit of summarizing the book, and this is probably the very difficult for everyone who can share the content of. So this is the cover of my book, and the picture, just you can see, it's the celebrations locally called Hanta Wapua, meaning the bringing of the Malay, the propagators, the Malay Islamic preachers. So this is the descendant of the early Malay preacher who brought Islam to Bima. So I will let you know and the detail of this festival later on. this is the outline of my presentation. So I will talk about the role of Makassar to the coming of Islam to Bima, and then I will describe the celebration of Hanta Wapua festival. This is the celebration of the entry of Islam to Bima, and followed by Maulid ritual celebration. And then I will talk about Lebe. Lebe is the local conception of Imam in Bima. And then Sumpah Bilmana, the making of Sumpah Bilmana. This is the living consensus of the Bima people. And this also the drive force of the people of Bima to live harmoniously, regardless of their religious differences. And then conclusion. So next. So this study is part of the project called Being Muslim in Eastern Indonesia. So the title of my book is quite similar with this project, Being Muslim in Indonesia, Practice, Politics, and Cultural Diversity, with Chief Investigator, Professor Katie Robinson from ANU and Professor Andrew McWilliam from Western Sydney University. So this project investigates Muslim beliefs and practices among Muslim communities in Sulawesi, Maluku, Nusa Tenggara Timur, and Nusa Tenggara Barat, especially in Bima, my field site, through ethnographic field studies. So a key aim of this project is to understand the specificity of local inclusions and exclusions in regarding things as Islamic. What forms do these take and how are they legitimated in specific settings? So we ask what Muslim identity means to the people in these regions. So what we are trying to describe is their practices of daily life reflect their commitment to indigenous cultural traditions and to Islam as a religious, cultural, and political force. So what role do Islamic organizations play in their lives? Does the everyday experience of being Muslim in the eastern part of Indonesia include engagement with national forms of political Islam? And if so, how is it embraced? So this study provides an understanding of the cultural politics of Islam in Indonesia and sheds new light on the importance of religion in the post-New Order era. So I conducted ethnographic field study in 2011 and 2012 and continued on to do another field site in 2018 and 2019. So my focus is to understand as I said before, the specificity of local inclusion and exclusions in regard to the everyday experience of being Muslim by investigating Muslim beliefs and practices. So what we can understand from the concept of everyday Islam. So traditions as products of human creative endeavor are by their nature constantly being remade. So my book consider the ongoing accommodations between Islam and the local cultural practices. So it moves through the study of this region in eastern part of Indonesia. So to the conception of everyday Islam, Islamization is not uneven, even though popular historians often treat it as such. But Islamization is a process. So what I'm going to present today is how the Muslims experience Islam in everyday life and how they see as the process of being Muslim. So, next slide. So why Bima is important? So several scholars have worked on Bima, include Jeffrey Brewer, Peter Yus, Nurduin, Henry Chamberlain, Salahuddin, and Michael Prager. So I argue the most part of Michael Prager studies in regard to the celebrations of Maulid Festival. So I will explain this later on. So Bima is important because this region have Hindu-Javanese origins. So Bima is the name of a hero in the Mahabharata epics, and Samba, the god Shiva, or the Sanskrit Sambhawa. So this is the remnant of Hinduism in the name of this region. So next slide. So as you can see from the map, so yeah, Islam come from Sumatra, and you can see here Bima in the red cycle, just next to Lombok Islands. Yeah, last month in March, we Indonesians were very happy because the government could conduct MotoGP. Yeah, in Mandalika, located in Lombok Islands. So next map. I just want to show you where Islam came to Bima. Next map. Yeah. Yeah, this is the location of Bima city. So Bima is divided by two by Dompu sub-district. Yeah. Next. Next, yeah. Yeah, so Islam came from Sumatra, from Minangkabau to South Sulawesi, and then from South Sulawesi to Bima. Yeah. So as we can learn from the history that Islam entered the Indonesian archipelago through trade routes linking India, Africa, and the Middle East from across the Indian Ocean to China. So beginning from at least the 8th century. So as we can see from the map, South Sulawesi is part of the Islamization that have happening in much of Eastern Indonesia. So a series of conversion of the hereditary rulers of local politics whose legitimacy derived from origins myths that's happening around the coming of Islam in Indonesia. So South Sulawesi has been a particularly important node for the spread of Islam in the archipelago due to the Bugis tradition of sojourning and sailing to many parts of Indonesia. So the Sulawesi realms were relatively late among the pre-colonial polities of the archipelago to embrace Islam. Goa and Talo at the time, the twin kingdoms of South Sulawesi, were Islamized by the Sri Dato, yeah, the Sri Malay preachers from Minangkabau of Sumatra, and then the Dato was sent by the Goa kingdom, who just converted to Islam, to Bima. Yeah, so Bima at the time was under the protectorate of the Goa Sultanate. Okay, next map. Yeah, next. Yep. So Islam came from South Sulawesi to Sape, and then to Bima city. So the roles of the Makassar Sultanate of Goa in today's South Sulawesi and the Malay Islamic propagators from Minangkabau of Sumatra in the spread of the Muslim faith in the 17th century. Yeah. So, and also the politics of intermarriage between the noble woman of the Makassar Sultanate of Goa and the lowly king of Bima. So up to 8 marriage happening between the lowly king of Bima and the noble woman from Goa Sultanate. So this is the celebration of the coming of Islam to Bima. So it's called Hanta Wapua. This is the traditions from the Malay, because the Dato, namely Dato Ribandang, is one of the key figures in the Islamization of South Sulawesi at the time. And because of his important role in Islamizing South Sulawesi, and then the Goa king, the biggest kingdom in South Sulawesi, sent Dato Ribandang to Bima. So the coming of Dato Ribandang to Bima is celebrated annually. Next. So because of the coming of Dato Ribandang happened in the month of Ramadan, that's why the coming of Dato Ribandang is regarded as blessed. So the eve of the day of the celebration of Hanta Wapua, the local Muslims conducted a Maulid ritual. So you can see from the picture the recitation of Saraful Anam. This is another version of Barzanji book or Maulid text recited by 7 men in white, as you can see. And on the right hand side, 3 old men dicing up pandanus leaves in order to spread the perfume scan, marking the presence of the Prophet Muhammad at the time. So this is a very unique celebrations of Maulid ritual in Bima. If you are familiar with the recitations of Maulid text in everywhere in Indonesia, you can see sometimes the old men in the congregations stand up and spray the perfume to every hands of the participants. But here in Bima, it's not the perfume, but it is the pandanus leaves that is distributed to the participants. So the similarity between the commonplace practices is pandanus leaves also spread the good smell, marking the presence of the Prophet Muhammad. So next slide. So yeah, this is the Malay preacher. He's the descendants of the Datuk Ribandang. He was accepted by the Sultan at the terrace of the palace. He gave the Quran, symbolizing the acceptance of Islam. While on the left-hand side is Bunga Dolu. Bunga Dolu is the 99 eggs, colorful eggs, symbolizing the 99 names of Allah. It's called in Arabic Asmaul Husna. So this is the end of the celebrations of Hanta Wapua. So I may describe to you the details of Hanta Wapua. So Hanta Wapua is the local name for Siripuan. Siripuan is the Malay traditions, and it was decorated with 99 color eggs and placed in a rattan basket called bunga dolu. So the siripuan was put in a 2-meter long bamboo float, and the representative of the Malay people, locally called Penghulu Melayu, the old man in red, stepped on the float accompanied by 8 dancers, 4 boys and 4 girls. Yeah. And after the acceptance of this Quran, and then the distributions of bunga dolu to the participants. And sometimes it's very crowded because every participant eager to grab as many eggs as possible, because they believe it contains a blessing from the spirit of the Prophet Muhammad. So the distributions of bunga dolu, the 99 eggs, marks the end of the Hantau Pua festival. And interestingly, Mr. Ajis, both the traditionalists and the reformists from Muhammadiyah accept the objectives of the festival and also the Maulid festival as the entry of Islam to Bima. The only component of the festival that sparks criticism from the reformist Muhammadiyah is the belief that bunga dolu is the symbol of God's 99 names. So although the new religious strands agree with the concept of God's 99 names in the Quran, there remain different understanding on how to illustrate the symbols of God's 99 names in a given ritual. Yeah. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. This celebration also marked Bima anniversary. Yeah. During the reign of Sultan Abil Khair Sirajuddin, 1635-1681, he proclaimed that Islam was the religion of the Sultanate. So every 5 July, every year, the Bima people celebrate Bima anniversary. So yeah, another objection from Muhammadiyah is the use of perfume as a means of attracting the spirit of the Prophet Muhammad. As I explained before, 3 old men dash up or slice up the pandanus leaves in order to spread a good smell to all participants, and it's also aimed at attracting the spirits of the Prophet Muhammad to come. So this is what the reformist Muhammadiyah do not accept. They said that they believe that the Prophet Muhammad was present and gave blessings during the recitation. So this is for the Muhammadiyah followers are unacceptable. So what they say, what is more important is to take into account the life of the Prophet Muhammad as an exemplar in everyday life. Okay. But they are quite happy because the Quranic recitations came first prior to reciting the Maulid text. So this is what I call the accommodations of Muhammadiyah's criticism towards the celebration of Maulid traditions, because most of the participants in the Maulid festival regard Maulid text is the prime book to read before the Quran, and this is also the objection from the Muhammadiyah. But because the Sultan at the time, the late Ferry Zulkarnain, understood the objection of the reformist Muhammadiyah, then what the king or the Sultan did is to ask for the Quranic reciters to read the Quran first, and then allows the the Maulid text is recited by another participants. So this is the way of political accommodations conducted by the late Sultan at the time, Ferry Zulkarnain. Okay, next. Yeah. Michael Prager in 2010 wrote that because of Islamic reformers as the followers of Muhammadiyah, Bima Muslim had abandoned or left due to the successful religious propaganda program of Muhammadiyah. So Prager described that returned Hajj or pilgrims invited to attend the occasions of life cycle rituals tend to express their objection to rituals. And my finding shows the current phenomena, which is quite different to what Prager claimed before. So next slide. So in much of Indonesia, the reformists as represented by the Muhammadiyah clergy often question the permissibility of the Maulid tradition celebration according to Islamic authenticity or proper piety and ritual action. So reformist Muhammadiyah claims that Maulid ritual was never conducted during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad or during the life of any of his four companions, and thus it is a bad innovation and should not be allowed. And this is the common understanding from the Muhammadiyah. You can find this claim everywhere in Indonesia. But let me show you what the Muhammadiyah understand in Bima today, which is different to other Muhammadiyah followers in Indonesia. Next slide. Yeah. My findings shows that not every Muslim returning from the Hajj in Mecca to Bima brought Salafist ideas. So Salafism is equal to Wahhabism. So this ideology is from Saudi Arabia and is very popular for their culturalization. Yeah, it's very popular for their against to local traditions. So to my findings, not everyone from Mecca brought the ideas or the Salafi ideas from Mecca when they returned to Bima and tried to reform or erase local culture and custom, as well as other syncretic religious practices. So many pilgrims or Hajj still have traditionalist backgrounds and remain attached to local traditions. And in today's Bima, those who have Muhammadiyah background have sought to accommodate local traditions and reinterpreted them within the Islamic framework. So they still celebrate it, yeah, but they try to understand it or to applicate it in Islamic way or in accordance with the Islamic principles. So next slide. So this shows forms of accommodations shown by reformists within Muhammadiyah towards the Maulid, the ritual conducted prior to the celebrations of Hanta Uapua. So as local culture and custom remain strong in the region, reformists have shifted their attitude towards moderation to accommodate local traditions and local wisdoms. So popularly called in Indonesia kearifan lokal. Next. Yeah, but still some objections remains. So as I said before, that the only component of the festival that sparked criticism from the reformists is the beliefs that Bunga Dolu Bunga Dolu is the symbol of God's 99 names. So there are many others objections from the Muhammadiyah, but the interesting things is because the Muhammadiyah remain participated in the celebrations. So this is a very interesting phenomena if you can see Muhammadiyah followers participating in Maulid tradition in Bima. Yeah. Next. Yeah. This is the pandanus leaves. That's up by the three old men. Next. Yep, I wrote the how the new phenomenon from Muhammadiyah in Indonesia by writing it in an article and published by Indonesia and the Malay World. So you can just read in full my article in this issue. So I might probably skip some of the slides because of the time limited. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so being Muslim in Indonesia by studying Bima, it's about the history of contestation and accommodations. So there is a contestation there, but there is also accommodations. So the main driver of accommodation is coming from the political systems existing now in Bima. So the dyadic power or the sharing power as the characteristic of Austronesians speaking community in Bima allows the accommodations happening in Bima, including in the religious realm. So you can see how the Sultan is the founder of Nahdlatul Ulama branch in Bima, and the Prime Minister Abdul Hamid or Rumah Bicara or Raja Bicara is the founder of Muhammadiyah branch in Bima, and the two are brothers. So through familial relationships, the accommodations can happen in Bima. So next slide. Yeah, Sumpah Bilmana is the local language. It's Bilmana Oath. Bilmana is the name of the king in the pre-Islamic Bima, and the substance of this oath is giving up individual goals for the interests of the people and country of Bima. So up to the present, this oath or this sumpah has become the living consensus between the descendants of the Sultan and that of the Raja Bicara in Bima. Next slide. Yeah. This is the picture. The Sultan and the Raja Bicara, they were sitting side by side. Yeah. Next. Yeah. The consensus still at present at the time of Sultan Ibrahim, yeah, with Raja Bicara Quraisy. Next. How much time I have, Mr. Aziz? Yeah.
You have about 15 minutes more.
Okay. Okay, we have to skip. So this is the palace of Sultan and Raja Bicara. Next. Next. Yeah. Yeah, next. Yeah. This is the descendants of the sultans. Yeah. Siti Mariam, the old woman, is the daughter of the sultan, and Pak Safruddin is the descendants of the Raja Bicara. So these two persons are the key figures in the celebrations of Hanta Wapua. Even though they all have different religious orientations, Siti Mariam is the NU followers and Safruddin is the Muhammadiyah followers, but they are in line and they agree to the implementation of the Hanta Wapua festival, regardless of their differences. Next. Yep. Next. Next. And yeah, I want explain in details the role of imam, but briefly I just want to say that imam or lebe in local language is the guardians of the local tradition. So the Sultan have provided money or funding for the candidate imam to go to the overseas, mostly to the Middle East to study about Islam, and in return they have to serve the mosque by becoming imam. So what I said here in my article, the role of imam or lebe is serve the mosque and also sustain the royal authority. So I skip this slide. Yeah. So there are 24 mosques and all the imams are educated and trained in the Middle East with the financial assistance from the Sultan. Next. And they also become the prayer outside the mosque. They also become healer to heal the sick persons outside the mosque. So they are a true guardians of the local traditions in Bima. Next. Let me just go to the conclusion. Yeah. Yep, this is the Padasa. Yeah, I just saw you before. The Padasa is the water source for the local Muslims, where when they come to the healers for asking for help, they have to take with them the water from Padasa and ask the imam to give prayer onto the water, and then they drink it by the time they go home. So that's the mechanism of curing the sickness among the Muslims in Bima. So in conclusions, Islam in Bima is accommodated to and integrated within local cultural traditions. Imams or lebe have been instrumental in safeguarding the local traditions. Not only do the imams serve the royal mosque, but also sustain the local expressions of Islamic rituals. So among the royal elites, both the descendants of the Sultan and the Raja Bicara have cooperated and accommodated each other in the rejuvenation of the Maulid ritual and the festival of Hanta Wapua, regardless of their religious orientation. So next. So I have described form of accommodation shown by reformists within Muhammadiyah towards the Maulid and to the celebration of Hanta Wapua. So in particular, the role of the Bima Sultanate has been pivotal in this harmonizing process, precisely in the establishment of reformist and traditionalist organizations in Bima. This in turn becomes the underlying driver of greater accommodation by the reformist Muhammadiyah. Yeah. Thank you. If we have still time, we can probably watch a video. I have just shared the link through chat room.
The administration of marriage from Malayan community village and the sound of the dancer of saya menyerahkan titik-titik untuk jadikan petunjuk dan pedoman kedua yang sudah diberikan dalam kesempatan ini.
Dengan mengucapkan Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, saya kita semua rahmat ridho dari Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Amanah ini saya terima dan akan saya laksanakan dengan sebaik-baiknya.
Yeah, I just want to show the Maulid ritual.
Okay.
It's very short video.
محمد اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد.
All men, right hand side, yeah, they are dicing up pandanus leaves. From the beginning to the end of the the young man That's all of my presentations. Thank you.